coming of age, friendship, found family, the underdog story, coming from behind, believing in yourself is my biggest message. Just believe in yourself and, follow your dream no matter what. And another thing is that the true friends out there will have your back. Always have your back, no matter what. And that's the overall message of the books, is to believe in yourself and follow your dreams. And don't let people put you under put you in a category, put you in a box. Feel good to be yourself. Be free to be yourself.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. Someone joining me from their car to record today, which is awesome. We're portable. We're parked though, and we're in safe position to do this. It's excellent. Rebecca's on the podcast. We're talking about her journey here as an author and all of the great things she's up to. And I'm so glad to have her on the show. Hey, Rebecca, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Dave. Thank you for having me. It's really
now, I know some people call you Becky. Now, what would you prefer?
I go by Becky, but either one works. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we might kind of bounce back and forth.
That's
but I love that. Tell everybody where you are in this great big world of ours.
So I live in Denver, Colorado, out here in the Mile High City.
Nice.
So it's more of a suburb, though, that I live in. I pretty much live in Thornton, but it's really weird because the mailing address is for Denver. So it's really kind of weird. It's weird. But
Is that where you're born and raised?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
a native.
There you go. When I talk to people in the U.S., a lot of times they're like, well, I live here, but I'm from there. A lot of people say that. They don't always say that they're born and raised there. So that's unique. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I've lived here my whole life.
Excellent. Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your author journey. How did all this start for you? What was the spark that made you go, wait a minute, I want to write. I want to become an author. How did that happen?
Well, I've always been in a creative vein ever since I was a little girl. I just, was always like, I love to dance and, perform and do things like that. And it just was another branch of the creative outlet for me when I was, little. I could write poems, and I started with poems and songs and, things like that. I didn't write my first book until I was 14.
Wow.
So it's just been always something that I've loved to do. I just love to do it. And it was a way to entertain myself as well as a young girl.
Amazing. So when did you publish your first book then? At 14?
No,
okay.
I was, it's Hound Dogged was the first one that I actually got published. I had tried to get published before that, but back in the 80s when self-publishing wasn't a thing.
Right.
It was a lot harder. You had to find an agent for sure. And it was just a lot tougher. And I kind of gave up. So, and I picked it back up again later on. Now that self-publishing is a thing, it became like a possible dream, possible to make my dream come true.
Excellent. We have a lot of authors who listen to the show, and they're early in their journey as an author. They come here for wisdom from a fellow author who's done something they haven't done yet. You've crossed the finish line many times with your writings, but there's somebody here who's just starting. The gun went off. They're on their race. They just left the starting line. They don't know anything about anything to do with authorship.
Yeah.
How can you encourage them today to pursue their dream to write?
The biggest piece of advice that I feel helped me the most was don't give up. I mean, take some time to really think about why. Why are you on this journey? What is compelling you to do it? And then you need to write that down and refer back to it as you go, because it gets hard. It gets tough and it gets discouraging, but you just got to hang in there and you got to remember your why. And it's like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it. And give yourself some grace, because it's very tough. It's tough for me still. So, I mean, and you're always learning, you're constantly learning.
Yeah.
So,
Talking to an author recently, and they were struggling because they were trying to get someone to look at their writing, someone to help them, and they had some no's. They had people like, no, this isn't the right genre. This is not the right book for us.
yeah.
We're not interested. And they got that letter, and it was just like a punch in the stomach almost. Like, what? Like, I'm so proud of this, but they heard a no. Like, for those people who hear no's, what do you say to them about continuing?
Yeah, I mean, that is a tough one. Sounds like the person that maybe you were speaking with is trying to go the traditional publishing route. And yeah, it's going to be tough. You're going to get a lot of no's because that's just what they do. They call it writing to market. They're looking for a specific type of book that's going to fit into a specific, attract a specific type of writer. So to write to market, you're writing basically a story that they feel is going to fit into what they're looking for, and it's worth, I hate to say this, worth their time to publish.
Right.
It doesn't, it doesn't mean that you're no good or that you're not any good or at it. There's just, what you're looking for is not, I mean, what you're writing is not what they're looking for, because I've been there and done that, because I struggle because I write historical fiction, young adult historical fiction, which isn't about, it's not a superhero story, and it's not about, vampires and sparkly little fairies or something. So yeah, it's a tough sell. But there again, I remembered my why, and this is the story that I wanted to tell. And this is why, it's just something that I really felt compelled to do. And so, yeah, the journey's tougher.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the talk that you have to sit down and have yourself. It's like, what am I looking for? What is my goal in this journey? Am I looking for, to be profitable? Or am I doing this because it's my passion project? I really want to get it out there. It means so much to me. And that's another piece to it. So for the advice for the writer that you were speaking with is maybe they ought to think about self-publishing as an avenue for them. Because, yeah, I mean, going the traditional route has its pluses, but it also has its minuses too.
Right.
So,
who has been one of your allies as an author, supporting you, encouraging you to continue? Who comes to mind from your community that's just been there saying, you got this, Becky, you can do this?
You mean in terms of another writer?
Yeah, writer, community member, family, friends, somebody that just has always encouraged you to keep going forward.
My husband.
Yeah.
He was the one that, because when I was writing Hound Dogged, I was just writing it for myself. It was a book I had wrote when I was younger, and I just wanted to rewrite it and rework it. It was just going to be for me. And he just kept asking me about it, kept asking me about it, kept asking me about it. And he played in bands back in the days, a guitarist and all that. So he was like, yeah, he really wanted to read it. So I let him read it. And he's like, Becky, you've got to do something with this. You can't just let this one pass. You really got something here. You really need to do something. And yeah, he's constantly been in my corner, encouraging me to go forward and encourage me to move forward. I mean, I've had people like that in my past, but not like him. I mean, he doesn't give up. He's always constantly been there pushing me and telling me I'm worth it and I'm good enough. And I really needed that as a writer. I really need someone like him to give me that boost.
It's good.
So yeah, he's been huge. He's been huge.
Those are wise words for an author, to have somebody in your community that pushes you forward, encourages you, strengthens you when you don't really have it in the moment, to have somebody there going, you got this. I love what you're doing. It's good.
Because it is a lonely journey, because you do a lot of it by yourself. You're in that room with your computer, or your laptop, or whatever, and so yeah, and doubts just creep in. That's just who we are as humans and everything. We just have them, but you just have to try to remember your why and just constantly try to move forward and look for people out there that will support you, and it's not always an easy find. I've had a hard time finding people within my community. I found a few. It took me forever, but they are out there.
Okay, so tell me more about what you're writing about. You have multiple books in this world. You have lots of things going on, but tell me about the area you're writing in, and the subject matter is very unique to me, and I'm curious to know more about how you got focused on this. But explain to us a little bit more about what you're writing about.
So my books are a young adult historical fiction series. The name of the series is Hound Dogged. It's the Hound Dog Series. The first book is Hound Dogged. It's about a group of young men who have a friendship. They come together in the year 1958 during the birth of rock and roll, and they form a rock and roll band. And it's a lot about coming of age, finding our way in the world, and growing up and trying to be that next big hit, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome.
So then book 2 follows.
Okay.
Book 1. Seeming the same thing.
So you mentioned your husband played guitar in music in the past? Yeah. So
yes.
What is it for you musically? Why are you so attracted to write about this?
Well, I like I said, I wrote the first draft of the book when I was 14.
Yeah.
Just always liked musicians, always liked music. And I just, when you're a young teenage girl, you kind of are attracted to the rockers, I guess. So it was just something I felt passionate about. And so I wrote the story that way.
Yeah.
Well, I've always liked, people that are musical. Creative, musical, yeah.
Yeah, it's a different part of your brain engaged when you do music. I remember as a young kid watching a band play, and there'd be like 3 people on stage, and I'm like, how do 3 people make that much noise? I don't understand how this all works. Everybody's doing their parts. They're all working together, playing different instruments. And it's just stand there as a kid going, I want to do that. I want to experience that. It's like a family up there too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely for sure a dynamic that happens when it's right, when you're with the right people. That's when the magic happens. And I try to capture that a lot in book 1 because it starts out with them meeting each other and how the band is formed. And I write about how the magic that does happen when they finally get the right group in the right space, and it's starting to come together. And I was like, wow, because it's not like that in the beginning. It's really tough in the beginning because they're all on different pages and they're all trying to find their way. But once they find each other and start really working at it is when it starts to click.
Is there any historical significance to your characters? They all imagined, made up? What's the root of your characters?
Yeah, they are made up. They're fictional characters.
Yeah.
I just wanted to create that newness, and I wanted to approach it from a different angle in terms of they're all different. They all have their own unique personalities. They're almost like a group that you want to see picture coming together. That they come together, and it's really cool. They all have they all bring their own little thing to the mix.
Is there any particular character from your book that you gravitate to the most, that you just kind of connect with, and you just I would love to meet this character in real life?
Yeah, I would love to meet John. He's my lead character, and he's just total opposite of me. So that's because he's just like a free spirit, just kind of does whatever the moment takes him, wherever the wind blows him. He doesn't care what other people think about him. He says what he wants to say. Doesn't matter. He's just a free spirit, and I wish I had that because I don't. But that's why I enjoy writing him too, because he says whatever to whoever. So I like that.
So you get to live through him on the page.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so who would be your target audience then for this? So we can, like, people are listening, they're like, this is either going to be a book for me or somebody I love. Explain more about who this would be a perfect book for.
Well, it's interesting because it's considered a young adult because of the ages of the characters, because they're in their late teens and early 20s. But I don't think very few have read from my from the young adults. It's mostly it seems to gravitate toward an older audience. A lot of them like it because of the nostalgia that it brings back from the 1950s. I have had a lot of musicians read it. It is about friendship and true friendship and hope. And so I think some people gravitate toward it for that reason.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been interesting. It's like I've gone from people that actually lived in the decade to a younger audience. But I don't think a whole lot of young adults have read it. At least that I know of.
How much research do you put into your work, trying to get the times right, the terminology right, the history right, what's going on in the space? How much do you spend in research?
Well, I knew a lot of it just because I've always liked the 50s, and my parents played a lot of the 50s music and stuff, so I grew up with a lot of that. And then there's the old traditional movies, and I did watch a lot of shows from the 50s and movies that were made in the 1950s. So I did a lot of that, and read books that were written, and just, did a lot of research online. Now research is a lot easier than it was when I was growing up, because you'd have to go to the library, go through the card catalog, and
yes.
Now it's at your fingertips. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. How detailed are you in the book? Do you really get kind of caught up in the details of the story and what's happening in the world around your characters, or do you kind of soar above that a little bit, don't get so caught up in the details?
Well, that's interesting, because I think there is a little bit of both, but like just what was happening in the 1950s in terms of how they felt about rock and roll. It was considered the devil's music,
right. And
they're to stomp it. A lot of the older generation. So that really comes into play in book 2. That conflict comes to light real fast, because the story takes place in a small town, and it's kind of in the background there, but then they have this show. There's a show at the community center that's just supposed to be on the down low, very hush-hush, very quiet. It's between the Hound Dogs and their rival group, the Dice. And it's just supposed to be some little quiet get-together thing. Well, and the Dice actually are going in under an assumed name, so nobody will know it's them. But the story leaks out, and then it just blows up.
Hmm.
And it's like, all of a sudden, there's a ton of people there, and it's like, now it's on people's radar, and it blows up. There's an incident that brings it to everybody's attention then.
Yeah.
And so,
wow.
So now all of a sudden it's like, yikes, now you've got the city council are threatening to ban it now. And they're working toward it.
Feels like many movies I've seen. They got little elements of all kinds of different things about you're not allowed to dance in this town, and you can't do this in this town. Again, squashing the whole rock and roll movement from the beginning. It was a very rebellious time, right? Where kids were trying to find their own identity, break away from their parents' music and what was going on in the world. There was a lot of stuff going on, and it seems quite tame to what's happening in the world today with music and things, right? But back then it was so different that people didn't know what to do with this music, or the way that people were responding. People didn't know how to handle it. Adults didn't know what to do.
Yeah, they were really, really threatened. And then, of course, you had the media and things like that feeding the fire, saying, oh, it causes juvenile delinquency. Oh, it's leading these kids down this path. And, now they're like doing these dances that have all these sexual, connotations behind them. And they're listening to, this music that's making them move too much or dance too close or, so yeah, so I was like, this is great. I can really have fun with this. And another part is like some of the girls are dealing with the whole, you're not supposed to grow up and have a career or anything. You're supposed to get married and settle down and be the stay-at-home mom. So I have that going on too. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on that feeds into that.
How many books do you envision for the series total?
Well, it was going to be 3, but I'm thinking it's going to be more like 4 now because I'm currently writing book 3, and there's just so much going on, and there's just too much to try to wrap up and do it justice in one book alone. So it's going to be 4.
How long did it take you to write the first one? You mentioned it back when you were 14, but the rewriting process and from beginning to publishing, how long did it take to get that one out to the world?
That one, it took a long time because when I first had it looked at and stuff and like really considering it, it was like, wow, I had so much to learn about writing as a craft, making a compelling story, taglines and, things like that, just making that. So I had to basically learn. I had a lot to learn. I learned a lot, and I had to basically redo it, because what I had there was just a skeleton, and it just kind of was all gobbled, because when I first had people look at it, because I was working with self-publishing school, they were like, this isn't 1 book, this is 2. You've got too much here, so you need to do 2 books. So I was like, oh, so then I had to figure out, what does that look like? And how do I pare it down? And what do I keep? And what needs to stay? And what needs to go? And what is, because there's little things you put in there that are just like, wow, this isn't really necessary. And it stinks sometimes because you just really love this piece. You're like, gosh, I can't believe I have to let this go. But it doesn't really contribute to the overall story. So you have to let it go. And, so I basically had to rework the whole thing. And it took quite a while. So I think it took me, almost a year.
Wow.
To even get it ready to get published.
It
was so much work. It was so much work.
And I think that's the one thing for the readers that are listening, that they don't really understand how long it takes to write something like this. And they see it on the shelf and go, oh, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks? I don't know. I have no idea how long it takes to write a book. But they see it as a finished product. They don't see the journey. And that's kind of why I'm doing this podcast, is I want readers to appreciate and understand how much effort it takes to write something like this, so that when they're buying it, I really encourage all my listeners as readers to leave reviews, because it's a way for other people to connect with the book, and your word of mouth means more than anything else. To have you come on as a reader and give praise to the author for a great book brings more people to the book and honors the amount of investment of time it takes to actually produce this thing. So that's my encouragement to people listening, is when they buy your books, is to make sure they're leaving great reviews. But for you as an author, what does that mean when somebody leaves you comments around your book that helps you and motivates you to keep moving forward? What does that mean to you to get those reviews?
Oh, it's awesome. When you get that review that says, oh gosh, I've been struggling with things and I could really relate to these characters and it really helped me a lot. I mean, that made me cry. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so awesome. And getting that positive, but then you get the ones where it's like, they give you a bad review and then the gal at the end says, well, I didn't read the first book. Okay, well, maybe if you had read the first book, the second one would have made more sense. But so now you've got like a 2-star sitting there. But it just is what it is. You're gonna get that 1-star review, your star.
Yeah.
but unfortunately, there again, the downside is it's like the algorithm and the success of the book all depends on those reviews and those positive reviews. And unfortunately, Hard Dogs Tonight doesn't have that many yet.
Mm.
But it coming out boosted book one a big time. So hopefully it'll just be, maybe when 3 is released, 2 will pick up. They really say that, you really by the 3rd book is when people start really looking at you as serious, and it's worth their time to invest in the series. At least that's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've heard similar comments from other authors. That seems to land really well.
And another thing too is like it depends on what you're writing too, how much time it takes. Like, if you're a romance writer, you need to be cranking them out like 6 months is too long almost. I mean, you got to be turning them out like cookies, because you'll lose your audience quicker than nothing, because that audience is voracious.
Yeah.
They read a book a week.
Yeah.
So to compete in that is just horrific. So you've got to really be churning out stuff quick.
Yeah.
And I don't think and another thing reason why it's slow for me too is because I work full time.
Right.
So, I've got work full time, and then, on the weekends, you're running around doing everything you couldn't do during the week.
And trying to squeeze writing into that schedule. That's a lot to juggle.
And then once your book is published, then you got to start working on the marketing and all of that other piece.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Getting on podcasts, talking to some guy in Canada from your car because you squeeze this in between work. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Oh, that's great. I'd rather be talking to some guy in Canada.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Doing the 9 to 5, I'll tell you.
So anybody who loves nostalgia, anyone who loves music is going to love this. Any musicians out there? Coming of
friendship,
age. Good.
Friendship, found family. The underdog story, coming from behind.
Yeah.
Believing in yourself is my biggest message. Just believe in yourself and, follow your dream no matter what. And another thing is that the true friends out there will have your back. Always have your back, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's the overall message of the books, is to believe in yourself and follow your dreams. Don't let people put you under put you in a category, put you in a box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
feel good to be yourself. Be free to be yourself.
I like that. And I'm a musician, and I know that music has opened the doors for me to meet other musicians. You meet a stranger at a band practice. That stranger quickly becomes a friend, and that friend becomes family because you're together so much. And you go through things as a group in a band setting that solidifies your relationship. And there's people I played with that we've kind of parted ways over time, do whatever, but they're still close. And we've done music together. And again, it's that whole magic that happens on stage in front of a big audience or small audience, but you creating something in real time in front of somebody. It's like going to a restaurant and they cook the meal in front of you, and you can see them do the ingredients and cutting everything and frying it up, or whatever they're actually making right in front of you. That's what music is for me. It's like you get to experience something being created live right in front of you. And it's that interaction between the listeners, the people watching, and the people performing. There's a bond there that created over time. That's what I love so much about music, and why I'm drawn to what you're writing, because it captures that moment that happens within a band, right?
Yeah, it does. Just the magic that they have there, and then like they're always there for each other. They got each other, and no matter what happens, because there's things that happen that start pulling them apart, but they somehow they're getting being pulled apart. And we're the strongest when we're together. Mm. We can do anything when we're together as one. Smart. So that's kind of cool. My husband even said that, because he recently he hadn't talked to these guys in a long time, but I guess they're still friends on Facebook. But I think it was the drummer's wife, had just suddenly passed away. It's just a freak thing. She just was gone. So, but they all got together, and he said it was like yesterday. He said we were all talking and everything like it was yesterday, like we were just saw each other yesterday.
Wow.
He said it was really cool. He said it was really neat. They all just started talking like it, picked up where they left off. It was really cool.
There you go. So a wide variety of people can fall in love with your books, which I love. We're going to send people to you. Becky, where do we go after this conversation to connect with you? Like, is there somewhere on social media you're most active, a website? Where do you want to send all the people listening to our podcast today?
Yeah, I do have, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Rebecca Hendricks Author on Facebook and Instagram. And then I have a website. It's RebeccaHendricksAuthor.com.
Okay.
And, you can sign up for my newsletter there. And there's also some extra content, some free extra content when you join the newsletter. It's like an origin story, kind of like a background, how two characters get together in the beginning. So yeah, it's a real short little story, but it's free, all you have to do is sign up for the newsletter. So there's that. And then of course the book's available, ebook and paperback on Amazon. The paperback's on Barnes & Noble as well.
Okay, so I'm going to close off with this, Becky, as we wrap up. My podcast is Living the Next Chapter, so I got to ask, you kind of alluded to this a little bit already, but how are you living your next chapter? What's next?
So I'm currently working on book 3.
Yep.
I hope to have it out by next summer. So that's my big focus right now, and then working on, the marketing piece. But I'd like to write some other books, too. I have a few ideas for some standalones and maybe another series. Yeah.
Well, I know if you had time just to devote to writing, you'd be able to just fall into that and you'd love it. But the fact that you can balance all of the things in life and still write, create great books for us to read, and all of that, I'm amazed how you can balance it all. But thank you for doing that. But here's to the future. You never know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Keep plugging away at it. Keep showing up. And again, for those listening, when you buy Becky's book, you heard her mention that she doesn't have a lot of reviews on book 1. Let's get those reviews up, everybody. Come on, you can help in this. So go there, buy a copy, buy an extra copy, and send it to someone, and leave reviews, please. It does mean a lot to our authors. So
it means a lot, and it helps with our algorithms and everything else.
Yeah. So you can help encourage an author today by leaving a review, and we really appreciate that.
Yes.
Excellent. Becky, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking a break from work to chat. And we'll definitely be watching with great interest to see what's coming next. Come back in the future, and let's talk about the next book as it comes out, okay?
Yeah, it was awesome, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information is always in the show notes. Make sure you go support our authors because they are awesome. And again, buy a copy for yourself and buy one for your friend. Make sure that we get the word out on all of amazing books written by Becky. Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you, Dave.
Hey, thanks for listening to Living the Next Chapter. I'm glad you stayed all the way to the end. You're my new bestie. And the one thing I like to do with my besties is enjoy time together over a cup of coffee. Now, one thing missing in the equation is my coffee cup is empty. And what I would love if, after 390 plus episodes roughly, if you found any value in the podcast and you want to say, hey, Dave, do you need a refill of your coffee cup? I'm looking at it right now, and you know what? It's looking kind of sad. There's not much in the coffee cup. If you want to help support the podcast, I would love you forever as besties and celebrate coffee with you. You can celebrate and support the show at our website using our Buy Me a Coffee link. And all the money goes back into the podcast. And we also like to give it to other podcasters. So if you want to support the show, head over to livingthenextchapter.com And let's top it up. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening. Cheers.